Hello Year 6, welcome to your literacy video for Monday. I hope you've all had a lovely weekend. Before we get started on our reading work for today, I just want to quickly go over your spellings for this week. So these are your new spellings. I have sent them out on Edshed this morning as well. Sorry, not on Edshed, on Marvellous Me. And I've set them on Edshed for you. But I just want to quickly go over your rule and then set you a little challenge. Okay, so you might have noticed then with your spelling words for this week that most of them have got a W in, okay? And some of them have got a Q and a U in them as well. Okay, so your rule this week is the O sound spelt with an A. So for example, this one is want. So we've got w-o-n-t, want, but it's spelt with an A, okay? So we've got want, watch, wander. Now wander is like when you go for a walk, you go for a little wander. Okay, so you might go for a wander down the corridor. Okay, don't get that one confused with wonder. Wonder is thinking, so like, oh, I wonder what's going to be for lunch today. Okay, so don't get those two confused. We've got quantity, which you might not be familiar with. So quantity is an amount. So how many of something. So if you have a great quantity of books, then you've got lots of books. Yeah? Squash, I think we all know what squash is, when you squash something, or there's a sport called squash, isn't there? Wasp, we all know what that is. Wallet. So wallet is like something that you might put money in, a bit like a purse. Was, swan and swap. I think we know what they mean. Okay, so your little challenge then before you start your literacy work today then is to practice your spellings in one way or another. I don't mind how you want to do it. You might want to do it on Edshed, that's fine, just take a little picture for me. Or you might want to do it on paper and do some things like we do in school. So you could do, you could play 3 in a line like we do in school. So it's like noughts and crosses, isn't it? But with your spelling words. But you'd have to get somebody in your house then to play with you. Or you could also play hangman with your spelling words if you wanted to with somebody in your house. Okay, so that's your challenge for today, is to practice your spellings this morning in one way or another and then send me a picture so I can see how you got on. Okay, so your reading work today then. So this is if you are in the train book. So this is most of you in the book. Oh, sorry, the book with the train on the front. If you're not in this one, don't worry, I will go over yours in a minute. Okay, so we are moving on today then to pages 16 and 17, and we are answering retrieval and inference questions on a text today. Now, our reading lesson today is going to be slightly different to usual because I want to go over some of the skills that we went over last week. I want to practice some of those. So we're not just doing all of the questions in the comprehension today. So make sure you listen carefully to which ones I want you to do and which ones I want you to miss out. Okay, but before we even think about going in our book, I've got a couple of questions just to start us off. So I want us to just have a quick recap over retrieval questions. Okay, so finding a retrieval question, is when we haven't got to do much thinking, because the answer is just in the text. Remember, retrieve is find, isn't it? Like you might ask a dog to go and retrieve a toy, it's go and get the toy. Yeah, so all you've got to do is find the answer in the text. Okay, so I'm going to do this one with you on the board, and then you can have a go. You just need to write them down on a piece of paper. Don't worry about writing them in your book. And then I've got another 2 for you to have a go at yourself. Let's have a look at this first one then. So, number 1 says, give 2 things that can be seen from the train. Sorry, I haven't even gone over what your text is today. I'll do that first. So your text is called From a Railway Carriage. So it says, Robert Louis Stevenson was born in Edinburgh in 1850. When he wrote this poem in the 1880s, steam trains were a very popular form of transport. They enabled people to travel long distances at much greater speeds than ever before. This poem describes a journey on a steam train. Okay, so you can have a quick read through your poem then. I have got just the first verse on my board here to help us answer this question. Okay, let's have another look at the question then. So it says, give 2 things that can be seen from the train. Now this is something that I have noticed we are struggling a little bit with when you've been sending me your work on the email. You're all absolutely brilliant at finding at least one thing or at finding all of the things, but you're not always paying attention to how many it's asking you for. So this question is only asking for 2 things. Okay, we're going to have a look and see how many things there are in the text. So it says, faster than fairies, faster than witches, bridges and houses, hedges and ditches. And charging along like troops in a battle, all through the meadows, the horses and cattle. All of the sights of the hill and the plain fly as thick as driving rain. And ever again, in the wink of an eye, painted stations whistle by. Okay, so I'm going to go through now and highlight all of the things that we can see from the train, or the people on the train can see. So, bridges is one, houses is one, hedges and ditches, they're all things that can be seen. The meadows, that's like fields, isn't it? Horses and cattle, so cattle are like cows and sheep. Of all of the sights of the hill and the plain, well, that's P-L-A-I-N, isn't it? So it's not an aeroplane. So that plane, you might want to look that up on dictionary.com. Remember, open up the internet, go on www.dictionary.com and look up what plane means. Fly as thick as driving rain, and ever again in the wink of an eye, painted stations whistle by. So we can see stations as well. Okay, so I have highlighted there all of the things that can be seen from the train. And as you can see, there are lots. But remember, we only need 2. So I'm going to choose meadows and bridges for my answer. Okay, so then you would write something like, so you're going to write your 2 things. And remember, you haven't got to always write it in a full sentence, because it's only asking you for those 2 things. So I'm just going to write meadows and bridges. If you want to put a bit more detail, you can do. So you can put meadows and bridges can be seen from the train. If you want to do that, that's fine, but you don't really need to. To get the mark, all you need to do is give your 2 things. Okay? It's not asking for any evidence or anything, so just those is fine. Okay, question 2 then. Question 2 then, I want you to have a go at by yourself. I will give you some little hints in a second to help you. So your question for number 2 is, what adjective is used to describe the stations? Okay, now these are your key words in this question. Remember, an adjective is a describing word. It's something that describes a noun usually. Okay, and stations is your key word to find your answer. So if you find stations in the text, so it's in this first verse again, if you find that in the text, then you will be able to find the adjective. Okay, and remember, for that one, it's just saying what adjective. You haven't got to explain it, you haven't got to write it in a full sentence, you can just write that one word on the line. Okay, your next one then, question 3, says find and copy a verb that describes how the child moves. So we've got another SPAG question here. So it's something about the child and we're looking for a verb. Now remember, a verb is a doing word, an action word, something that somebody does. Okay, so if you find child in the text, I think there's more than one verb in there, but make sure you only pick one, because it says a verb, doesn't it? So only pick one, and then you can just write that word. Okay, so going back to your book now then, we are going to have a go at questions 1 to 4 in your book. Okay, you don't need this on the board just yet, sorry, I'll take that off. So we're just going to have a go at 1 to 4. We're not going to do 5, 6 and 7 this week. Okay, so you're going to do those 3 retrieval questions, the first 4 in here, and then I've got another question for you to have a go at after. Okay, so question 1 then in your book says, why do you think the poet compares the speed of the train to magical creatures like fairies and witches? Okay, so that's in line 1 it says. So let's go and have a look in line 1. Let me just get that bit back up on the board. So it's here, faster than fairies, faster than witches, bridges and houses, hedges and ditches. Okay, so I want you to have a think. Why do you think they've chosen to compare a train to the fairies and the witches? Now it's going to be something to do, with that. It's going to be something to do with it going fast. Think about what fairies and witches both do, and then think about the train going fast. That's your hint for that question. See if you can have a go. Okay, question 2 then says, what does the poet compare to troops in a battle? So let's go and find it. So it says here, it says in line 3, and charging along like, oh, sorry. I thought I still had my highlighter on, 1 second. So, charging along like troops in a battle. Okay, but it's not in that line. The answer isn't in that line, so you're going to have to read the next line. Okay, so to find out what's being compared to troops in a battle. Number 3 then says, fly as thick as driving rain. This is an example of a metaphor, a simile, onomatopoeia or personification. Now we went over similes and personification in quite a lot of detail last week, but I've got some little reminders on the board to help you. So I've written a little reminder of what a metaphor is, what a simile is, what onomatopoeia is, and what personification is. Okay, so I'm going to go through them with you, remind you of what they all mean, and then you should be able to answer that question. So remember, a metaphor is when you say something is something else. For example, the sky is a blanket of darkness. Okay, a simile then is when you compare two things using like or as. Okay, we did lots of work on similes last week, so I'm sure you've remembered that one. For example, it was as loud as a siren. Okay, so we've used as to compare how loud something is with a siren. Onomatopoeia then, this one might be quite new to you, but onomatopoeia is when a word or a phrase represents a sound, like crash or bang or splash. Yeah, it's a sound. They're used in comics quite a lot, in like comic strips. And then personification is when you say something that is not alive can do something a human can do. For example, the trees were waving. Okay, so now I want you to go back to question 3, read the little bit of text again that you've got, and circle which one you think that one is. Number 4 then says, what is the poet describing in the poem, in lines 9 to 15. So go back to your text, go and find 9 to 15, so it's the second verse. What is all of that? So you've got, here is a child who clambers and scrambles all by himself and gathering brambles. Here is a tramp who stands and gazes, and there is the green for stringing the daisy. So you keep reading that bit. What's being described there? Have a think about being on a train. What's being described? Okay, so they are all of the questions that I want you to do in your book for today. Okay, so I have got another question for us to have a go at, just because I want us to practice using the evidence from the text, because that comes up quite a lot in our reading comprehensions, and we did that on Friday. So hopefully you're well practiced. We're going to have another go today, and hopefully you'll know what you're doing. So this one says, what speed is the train going? Use evidence from the text to support your answer. So we're going to do this one together. So I've got a little bit of the text here that I'm going to use to help me answer this question. Okay, so what speed is the train going? So I need to know if it's going fast or slow. Let's have a look. So all of the sights of the hill and the plain fly as thick as driving rain, and ever again in the wink of an eye, painted stations whistle by. So I think the train is going fast. Okay? So, let's put this down a little bit. So my answer would be something like, the train is going fast. And then you need to remember, you need to say because, and then put your evidence from the text. So the train is going very fast because in the text it says, so because in the text and then there's probably a couple of things in the poem that you could use. So it's not always right or wrong which bit of evidence you use, as long as it supports your answer. So the train is going very fast because in the text it says the stations whistle by, and that means they're whizzing by. So it must be going fast. Yeah? And then don't forget your full stop at the end. Okay? So that's the kind of answer that you need to be writing for the next one. So this next one then, this is your last reading question today. I want you to have a go at that one by yourself. So this one says, how can you tell that the train is going through the countryside? Use evidence to support your answer. So there are a couple of different things in the text that tell you the train is going through the countryside. So you just need to write something like, I can tell because the text says, and then give me some evidence from the text. Okay? So that is your reading for today. If you have got the book with the monkey on the front, then your next text for today is pages 18 and 19. And your learning question is, can I answer retrieval questions on the text on the farm? Okay, so I've got your text up here. Okay, so you need to have a good read through there. And then you will see, you will see down the bottom you've got a picture. And at the end you could even colour your picture in if you wanted to. So I just want to go through a couple of your questions just to make sure you know exactly what you need to do today. Okay, so have a good read through that. Your first question then is a table like this. So it says, put a tick in each row to show which child is wearing which item of clothing. So you need to go through your text and look for your keywords. So my keywords in this one is red boots. So I'm going to go back to my text and have a look at where it says red boots. I've spotted it, it's there. Okay, so then I can go back now and read that sentence. So I found red boots, go back to the beginning. Rachel has got red boots on. Okay, so now I can go back to my table and it's Rachel, so I need to find Rachel along the top and put a tick in that one. Okay, so for this one then, you need to look for blue overalls, then read the sentence and figure out who is wearing blue overalls. Okay, and then you'll be able to colour them all in the right colour at the end. Okay, your next question then says, what is Andy going to do next? So you're going to have to go and find Andy. So it says, Andy has already milked the cow and he's about to, so it tells you what he's about to do. Number 3 says, why do you think Josh is putting the strawberries into the bowl carefully? Okay, so it says here, he's picking strawberries and putting them carefully into a yellow bowl. Why is he doing that, do you think? It doesn't tell you why, so you're going to have to use your brain. What would happen if he wasn't putting them in carefully? Okay, I think you will be absolutely fine with those other questions, as long as you look for your keywords and use the text. Okay, so that's everybody's reading for today. Your word power work then today is page 23. Carrying on with names and what did you call me? Okay, so this is quite a nice page. I think you're going to enjoy this page today. So it says, when writers create characters, they make up names for them too. For example, Dumbledore. I'm sure most of you have heard of Dumbledore from Harry Potter. So Dumbledore is an old word for bumblebee. The writer said she imagined him humming like a bee. So J.K. Rowling made up that name or used an old word for that name just to make it sound interesting. So he says, the writer Charles Dickens created a character called Mr. Choakumchild, who is a teacher. Do you think he is kind to children in his class? So think about the word child. Doesn't sound very nice to me, but you need to make sure you explain why you think yes or no. And then it says, here are some characters from Matilda by Roald Dahl. What do you think they might be like? Okay, so you might all be familiar with Matilda, and you might already know what those characters are like, but if you don't, have a look at the word Trunchbull. Does she sound like a nice person or not? And Miss Honey, does she sound like a nice person? Okay, the next bit then says, can you draw or write about your own character and give them a name? You can use the ideas next to the box if you like, or make up your own. So this is quite a nice section. You can do a little bit of drawing for this one and draw your own creature or character. It can be a person or an animal, it's up to you, but then you've got to come up with a name. And try and think, is your character a nice character or not? And then try and make sure the name shows that. And then you've got some ideas down the side if you're struggling to come up with your own. Okay, and then the bottom one says, what can people's different names tell us about them? Okay, so it can either tell us something maybe about their personality or maybe about what they look like. So you can write something like that down the bottom. Okay, so that's all of your literacy work for today. I really look forward to the pictures that you're going to send in on email later. Good luck with everything, and I will see you tomorrow.